All right, welcome back. Now we will get into part of what Elisabeth helps Descartes think through more clearly, or to put it in other words, a correction she introduces to his philosophy, or to put it another way, a sort of dialogue they have that she helps him figure something out that he wouldn't have figured out alone. Okay. Go to page 2 of this reading. Okay. Descartes is what's known as a dualist. D-U-A-L-I-S-T. Dualism is a philosophical position that says minds and bodies are two totally different kinds of stuff. So that's why it's called dualism. It says there's two different things and they are totally different. Mind and soul are used interchangeably here. It just means any mental inner event is something that happens in your mind or soul. So the claim of dualism, and Descartes is a dualist. Dualists like Descartes say minds and bodies are two totally different kinds of stuff. So Descartes would say your real mind isn't the flesh of your brain or the electricity shooting across it, any more than your mind is, your literal heartbeat or something. Part of the proof he gives for this, he says all physical objects can be split into parts. You can cut your fingernails off. In fact, as gruesome as it sounds, you can lose a finger, but you're still you if you lose a finger, if you cut part of this physical object off, right? Think of it this way too. You eat food, so parts of your body go out, are discarded, and then you take parts of other bodies, animals, vegetables, etc., and incorporate them into your body. That's not your mind, right? Your mind is not made up of bits of cow protein after you eat a hamburger. Your soul is not made of carrots that you ate a day ago. They're just different kinds of stuff. Okay? Now, there are things which are very attractive about this position, dualism, because minds and souls do seem to be different from bodies. Partly it's that humans seem like they're different from animals. Animals might be only bodies, whereas you and I might be bodies plus a mind or a soul. That's one thing that's appealing about it, is it explains how we're different from animals. Another thing that's appealing about it, especially if you're religious, is that if minds and bodies are two totally different kinds of stuff, then there's the possibility that when your physical body dies, the real you, your soul or mind, the real you lives on after your body dies. Because after all, if your mind is something different than your body, then that means that the body dying doesn't kill the mind or soul, but just sets it free. Okay? So, a bit like I said with the last reading we did for this same, module today, philosophy can ask really big questions that seem totally pointless or useless. But they can always be turned into something interesting and important for your own life. So if I just asked you on the street, random Jane or Joe on the street, I said, do you think minds and bodies are the same thing, or do you think they're different? You'd probably roll your eyes and say, I don't care. I don't know, and I don't care. Fair enough. It's my job to make you care, or to show you why you might care. If you're religious, you probably believe in something like heaven or hell. Okay, if you believe in something like hell, there would need to be something to be punished in the afterlife, right? Something has to be punished in hell. Well, it can't be your physical body, because your physical body is here in the graveyard, right? So somehow you have to explain, if you're religious, which most of you are, and if your religion involves something like a heaven or hell, which for most of you it does, you have to explain whom or what is being punished in the afterlife. Now, if you think it's only an immaterial, a non-physical soul, that's one thing. You'd probably be punished by regret, say, or not being allowed to know or speak with your God, or not being allowed to know or speak with your loved ones. That might be the punishment for an immaterial, non-physical soul. But if you think there's a body involved, then hellfire could be literal, actual fire burning a literal, actual body. Right? So it matters to you what heaven or hell are. Sorry. If you're religious and you think there's something like heaven or hell, you have to figure out for yourself whether what gets punished or rewarded is a mind, a body, or some combination of the two. It also probably helps you figure out what counts as a sin. If you're not really a body, then maybe sins aren't primarily bodily sins, but mental ones. Anyhow, the point is this. If you are religious, which most of you are, and if your religion has something to do with the heaven or hell, which most religions do, it should matter vitally to you, very much so to you, whether what happens to you when you die is something that happens to a mind, a body, or some combination of the two. And if you don't care about that, I don't understand that, right? I don't understand how if you believe in heaven or hell, you don't care about them. Now here's the flip side. Maybe you say, well, I don't believe in God. Or you say, I believe in God, but I just trust the pastor. They're going to figure this out for me. I don't need to worry about it. Okay. Here's another reason you should care. This is where the Shapiro reading on Elisabeth links to the Rutherford reading on Descartes. Even if you're saying, okay, heaven and hell, I'm not going to think about that right now. The question of your emotional mental life, if you want to improve your mental life, if you want to have some control over your emotions, if you want to be happier and less sad, you still need to know, when I'm sad, is that something that's in my body only? Is it something that's in my mind only? Is it something that's in a combination of the two? Because, like a doctor, if you want to know how to heal yourself or improve yourself, you have to know what kind of stuff you are made of. You have to know what makes you tick if you want to improve the watch. That's part of what Elisabeth is asking Descartes. It's just that direct. She says, I feel so sad sometimes that I feel sick. Can you help me? And he says, correctly, like a good doctor, if we're going to help you, we need to analyze what's making you sick, break it down into parts. If it's a purely physical ailment, we need to give you physical cures. If it's a purely mental ailment, we need to give you purely mental cures. If it's some combination of the two, we need a combination. You see what I mean? If you want to avoid or fix your suffering, you have to know what it is. Philosophy can help you know what suffering is in order to prevent it and fix it. It can let you know what true happiness is so you know where to look for it and how to grab it. Yay, philosophy. Okay, so like I said, whether minds are just another kind of bodily substance, or whether minds are totally different from bodies, which is called dualism, because you think there's two different things, matters a lot to everyone. Okay. Now here's where it gets complicated, but in a fun way. Descartes is a dualist. That means he says, and he's got arguments for it, that minds or souls are totally distinct from bodies. They're a completely different kind of stuff. You know how oil and water are different kinds of stuff? They don't mix easily. He's saying minds are way more different from bodies than oil is from water. Way more different even than solid and liquid. Now what this means though is Elisabeth, she's smart. She's read Descartes in the original Latin. I don't even read it in the original Latin, let's be honest. She's read him in the Latin, and she says, okay, I have understood everything you've said, but she says, but But she says she has sort of three different kinds of objections, or this young woman has three different lessons to teach Descartes about his own philosophy. Okay, the first one is a very general metaphysical objection. This is the bottom of page 2. She says, for any body, if minds are so different from bodies, she says, then it's not clear how the soul or mind could make our body move. If minds and bodies are totally different, well, let's put it this way. Descartes says that bodies are defined by matter extended in three-dimensional space. And hey, that's basically what physics is. Objects in motion taking up space. And she says, well, look, when you see a body move in the world, it's always caused by some other body moving it. If a billiard ball moves on the table, it's because another billiard ball or a cue stick hits it. If a tree falls, it's either because the wind, which is made of oxygen, etc., in motion, so that's matter in motion, knocks it over, or because an axe, matter in motion, hit the matter of the tree and knocked it over. You know what I mean? Another way to put this is that no object moves unless it's pushed by another object, right? It takes an object in motion to put another object in motion. And so what she says is, she says, buddy, if you insist that minds are not made of matter at all, they're totally different kinds of stuff than body. If you insist that minds are totally different from matter, material physical objects, then there's no matter to push the body. So Descartes seems to have painted himself into a metaphysical corner. If he says that minds have nothing to do with bodies, then they can't move bodies, it seems like. This is an excellent objection, and Elisabeth puts it really well. Okay? Basically, she says either the mind can't move the body because it's got nothing to do with the body, or the mind is just another body, like a billiard ball, pushing another billiard ball around. So that's a general metaphysical objection. She says, in general, minds and bodies are so different that they can't interact. Then she changes the point to something more less abstract and more experience-based. She says, hey, we've all seen it where someone faints, or where someone has depression, they can't get out of bed, or where someone's schizophrenic. She says, there seem to be bodily things, sleep would be a great example, where the body controls the mind or blocks the mind somehow. So she says, wait a second, if minds and bodies have nothing in common, how do we explain our normal experience? We've seen people get sick and not be able to think correctly. We've seen people want to, with their minds or wills, stay awake, but their body makes them fall asleep. We've seen people depressed who want to get up out of bed but can't make themselves do it. So she says, okay, now we've got an experience-based problem from the other side. It does seem like the body itself can push on the mind. Not only does it now seem that they're linked, but it seems like the body might be in control some of the time, when you're sick at least. Then we've got a third sort of objection. This one is at the bottom of page 3, and it goes really for the most of the rest of the reading. So now what happens is we had the metaphysical abstract point. Mind as such cannot control body as such. No matter, etc. Then we have the experience-based point. Hey, we've all experienced people being sleepy, sick, etc., and that seems to influence their minds or control their minds. Now she says we're going to look at something slightly different, and it's her own personal experience. And this is her point from personal experience. Remember what we started with her biography. She has had a rough life. She's in constant stress. Her family is in danger. She's in danger. And not only is her life stressful and bad now, but it recently was so good that the fall to where she's at now is even more hard to deal with or stressful. Okay. And so this is what she says. This is basically pages 4 and 5. She says, I believe that the mind has the control over the passions like you described. I believe that we can view things in a different way and make them seem less bad. But she says, but right now I am in such anxiety, in such sadness. Her brother just died. In such worry about the future for myself and for others. And I'm confused. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. The world's constantly changing. And she says, basically, I don't think your remedy is going to help me out that much right now. Okay, she says, I hear what you're saying and I believe it works, but I don't think it would work much for me right now. Basically what she says is, she says, your remedy requires a certain strength of mind. I normally have that, and Descartes says that she normally has that, but she's like, man, right now, I just don't have it in me. I'm too sad to use my mind to heal my sadness. I'm too tired to use my mind to heal my body. Okay? So that's her final sort of objection from personal experience. She says, I think you're right that the mind has a strength to it that it can use to shape bodily or emotional life and reactions. But she says, oh, right now I'm laid so low, I don't think I have the energy, basically, the mental energy to work on these problems as you recommend. So the author of this piece, Shapiro, sketches out something very subtle here. But what she's saying is this. She says, Descartes kept hearing part of Elisabeth's objection, but not all of it. And she says, now, since Elisabeth has given him the abstract metaphysical one first, minds and bodies are too different to interact. The experience-based one, sometimes people are sick or sleepy, and so don't seem to be able to, their bodies seem to dominate their minds. And then the third one from her emotional life, about the emotional self-control that we talked about before. And she says, the author Shapiro says, only through sort of hitting Descartes from every possible angle and giving him objection after objection, finally he gets her point. So this is the last line of this reading, is Shapiro says, it's interesting that Descartes finally concedes this time around Elisabeth's point. And he basically wraps his head around her objection and goes, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. If you're really, really sad and your mind is weakened, you can't use your mind, your mental strength to make your life better. And if you're really, really sick, your body can prevent your mind from doing these things. Okay? He finally sort of gets her objection. Okay? So once more, just brief summary. We are using here so-called abstract philosophical ideas to improve our lives. Second point, Elisabeth, a young woman, was sitting there with Descartes, understanding him perfectly and actually schooling him on his own philosophy. That's super interesting from a feminist standpoint, and it's super interesting from the history of philosophy standpoint, that Descartes didn't do this stuff all by himself. He thought through ideas with other people. That's how you become great in philosophy, science, business, etc. You work with other people and get your best ideas polished by conversation with them. Okay, but we're going to have another discussion question. Remember, Descartes says, Elisabeth, I know you, I know you're strong. You've gotten through so much already. You've already done so much philosophical therapy of your passions or emotions. I'm so proud of you. And then she and he both say, okay, right now though, you're weak. You're too beat up by the world to do very much. So this is how it ends, is both of them say Elisabeth has some strength over her emotions, but not perfect strength and power over them. But what this means is even her lack of strength shows that there is such a thing as strength over your emotions and control over them. It's just sometimes you have it more and sometimes you have it less. So here's the discussion question. And you can be as specific and personal as you want with this in the discussion, but please do not offer up anything that you're not comfortable offering up, because it's discussion and we'll all talk about it. So share personal stuff with us if you want to. Hold back personal stuff and be vague or general if that's what you want. Okay? I'm not trying to make anyone share something they don't want to hear. Okay, so the question is this. When is a time when mental strength that you have has been the most useful to you? Or, to put it another way, when have you shown the most mental toughness in your life? Okay, so either when was mental strength, this sort of controlling of your emotions, when has that been of the most use to you? Or a slightly different spin on it is, when have you needed to and been able to show the most mental toughness in your life? Okay. A bit of a follow-up. How do you think you were able to do that? What made you able in this case to be stronger than normal, or as strong as you needed to be? Okay, was it just luck? Was it the specifics of the situation? Was it that this time you had a stronger desire, you really wanted it more? Is it character? Is it just like, oh, I'm usually this sort of mentally tough person, that's who I am? Was someone else helping you to be strong? What was it? So again, when have you shown mental strength in your life? When has it been the most useful you to do so? Or when have you shown the most mental toughness? And then how so? Where did you get this great mental toughness from? Okay. Flip side, you can answer this one instead. What about a time when you lacked mental strength? When was a time when you were weaker ethically, emotionally, mentally than you would have expected? Okay. And in that case, is there anything you think of that could have helped you there? Something that could have bucked you up a little bit, made you as tough as you sometimes have been, as tough as you wanted to be in that moment? Okay. And just to sort of follow up to either side of that, again, I'm saying, when have you been really mentally tough? Talk about how that happened. When have you not been as tough as you wanted to be? What happened there? Just the polish off for either one of those. Do you think there's a way to get better at mental toughness? Specifically, do you think that what Descartes is recommending in either of these readings is a way to help us get better and stronger, to use our mental toughness to feel less bad? So what do you think about what he says? Could it have helped? Could it explain when you were so mentally strong? Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for picking this reading. I was really excited to do these. Okay, bye-bye.